Democratic socialist, a.k.a. communist candidate, Zohran Mamdani. So we got a lot of flack over this past weekend because deep down, actually not even deep, just literally on the front page of his campaign website, he says, tax white people. Yup. And so the New York Post issued this front page physical paper where it shows him saying, tax the whites. That's amazing. Now, this guy's an overt communist. And it's funny because that word is thrown around quite a bit, especially historically. You're a communist. But he is. Now, of course, they try to draw a distinction and say he's a socialist, but the end result of socialism is always communism, and the goal of socialism is always communism. The only way socialism can exist is when you install a rigid top-down political system that controls the economy. So, yeah, he's a communist, but here's a funny thing. PolitiFact says he's not a communist because he's only advocating for some communist things. Basically, they're like, look, communism is when there's a centrally planned economy, like the government controls the flow of goods. He's only calling for government-run entities that would compete. And it's like, okay, are you seriously arguing that? Because I'll go full Godwin's law on you. Okay, let's do it. That's like arguing Hitler wasn't a fascist Nazi, violent genocidal murderer because he didn't actually adopt those policies until after he got power. Now, what I mean is, as if the argument would be that Hitler wasn't evil because he didn't actually start killing the Jews until after he got the power of the government. The point is, you want to see the warning signs of evil people and stop them. That's the lesson we learned. I know Godwin's law. I don't need to. We can go any other direction other than just screaming Hitler 400,000 times per minute. But let's say Stalin. He's not really a communist because he's only advocating for workers' rights. My dude, come on. But here's where we are. Now, my friends, we're going to break all this down and talk about why they're lying, but ultimately it may be good news. Most of the country hates socialists, so they're probably going to end up losing quite a bit. So it's not the apocalypse, but maybe the Democrats are imploding and the Republicans will become the supermajority party in this country, for better or for worse. Now, before we get started, my friends, I want to give a shout out to Steven Crowder and the Mug Club. You guys rock. Thank you for joining me for the noon hour in the Rumble morning lineup. Now, of course, bringing you into that afternoon. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to smash the like button and share the show with everyone you know. And of course, we got a great sponsor, my friends. It is AmericanFinancing.net/Tim. What if you could delay your next 2 mortgage payments? That's right. Imagine putting those 2 payments in your pocket and finally getting a little bit of breathing room. It's possible when you call American Financing today. If you're feeling stretched by everyday expenses, groceries, gas, bills piling up, you're not alone. Most Americans are putting these expenses on credit cards, and there doesn't seem to be a way out. American Financing can show you how to use your home's equity to pay off that debt. You need to call American Financing today before you get to a point where you can't make those payments. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners just like you restructure their loans and consolidate debt, all without upfront fees. And their customers are saving an average of $800 per month. That's like a $10,000 raise. It's fast. It's simple. It could save your budget this summer. Call now before it's too late. That's 866-890-7811. That's 866-890-7811. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Tim. Shout out. Thanks for sponsoring the show. And of course, don't forget to follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. I'm your morning host, Tim Pool, here to talk about the goings on in the world. And I'll be the first to tell you guys, slow news week. Hey, look, we're about to enter MAGA month, okay? And everybody's excited, as am I. The amount of burgers that will be grilled and hot dogs with grilled onions to be had, it is going to be obscene. The amount of amazing grilling we will do in celebration of this great nation. 4th of July, of course, is coming up this Friday. Everybody's gearing up for this holiday weekend to celebrate America. And, of course, whenever this stuff happens, the news cycle slows down a bit. But we do have stories for you. Let's start here. The New York Post dropped an editorial from their board. Zohran Mamdani's tax whites more is pure racism. But let me tell you, my friends, it's to be expected when y'all become a minority. The funny thing is, these white identitarians had been screaming about this for some time, actually arguing that they agreed largely with what Black Lives Matter had been saying about racial identitarianism. The sad reality is that people are racist. And this is funny. This is like critical race theory light. Like this is a tenet of that. I shouldn't say it's light because you don't have to agree with their weird communist garbage just because you can recognize that people are racist. Now, what does it really mean? Take a look at this from Zohran Mamdani, an avowed and overt racist man. He writes on his website, 25% of all NYC homeowners spend more than half of their income on housing, a burden felt most acutely in our city's immigrant communities and Black and Latino neighborhoods. Prior to becoming an assembly member, Zohran worked directly with these New Yorkers to keep them in their homes. Now, okay, all right. I mean, he's highlighting a couple racial groups or ethnic groups. What's wrong with that? What he actually writes. He writes, shift the tax burden from the overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. Indeed. He says the mayor can fix this by pushing class assessment percentages down for everyone and adjusting rates up, effectively lowering tax payments for homeowners in the neighborhoods like Jamaica and Brownsville, while raising the amount paid in the most expensive Brooklyn brownstones. That's right, whiter neighborhoods. He's saying it. Now, I'll tell you this. These people are evil and they are racists. So what does it mean to be racist in this context? Okay, now this is an argument that I've gone into with a lot of people on the right because the view semantically, colloquially, when people on the right say racist, they're talking about a guy who looks at another guy who's a different race and he says, I plumb just don't like you based on race. Okay, that is how the right largely views it. It's not an incorrect assessment of the term. However, the left goes nuts with it, and they say racism is like structures, and yeah, whatever. I'm just using racism to define prejudice, and you will find that every racial group has a bias in favor of their group. That's it, except for white people. White liberals have out-group preference, and so to varying degrees, there is a preference for, maybe I shouldn't say racist then. Maybe that's a little too strong. Maybe I should say groups identify based on race largely, and they will have a preference for those groups. So what happens? Zohran Mamdani is free to tell white people he's going to tax you because only 29% of New York is white. And it's largely white liberal without group preference, meaning this is the popular position in New York. Now, here's what the editorial board writes. Before we get into the historical data, I'm going to show you the breakdown of the racial demographics of New York City. The devil's in the details, and so is the racism. Zohran Mamdani shows New York where his priorities really are in his position papers, where he promises to fix the city's property tax system. His solution, punish whitey. He'd shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. How will he do this? Well, once elected, he would push assessment percentages down for everyone, which, like most of what Mamdani proposes, is highly unlikely. But never mind that. Next, King Mamdani would adjust rates up based on the racial makeup of a neighborhood. The plan would effectively lower tax payments for homeowners in neighborhoods like Jamaica and Brownsville while raising, we read that already. So what percentage of paleness classifies as a neighborhood as white? A plurality, 50%. Guess that means Williamsburg, which is 57% white. We'll have to pay, but not Astoria, where Mamdani lives, because it's 48%. Maybe he'll go door to door and root out those nefarious Caucasians and make them pay their white tax. Mamdani could have proposed property taxes that fix and focus exclusively on valuation, but that's not what his campaign is really about. It's about identity politics and a hierarchy of oppression. Did the rich white liberals who helped him win the Democratic primary know he would turn on them so quickly? Sorry, Zohran, we need a mayor for all New Yorkers. Well, I tell you this. If you are a white property owner in New York, good luck. You probably want to sell as fast as you can because this dude's coming for you. He is, and you know what I love about this? The best part is like Williamsburg. The rents are going to get jacked up like crazy if he actually does this. Okay, here's what's going to happen. These people are really dumb, okay? Communists and socialists are developmentally disabled, and they are stupid. I mean, I tweeted this earlier, but aside from the obvious logical fallacies, okay, that we have a history of the failures of socialism, but they're just too stupid to get it. Therein lies the big problem of a modern republic. Now, we can all make fun of communists and socialists and say their systems don't work. But to be fair, we're only like a couple degrees better. Now, while our modern constitutional republic is pretty fantastic, it still opens the door for communists. And if communists can walk in the door, they can turn you into a communist. So, I mean, your country, right? So, admittedly, I get it. All systems are bad. Ours is just the least worst bad, as the saying goes. So we are facing that. But these people are as dumb as a box of rocks. I don't need to go through for the 80th time exactly why all of this is dumb. His policies don't make sense. But let's just address why all the white people's rent's going to go up a lot. And they're going to have to leave. They're going to leave. And it's going to drive the white population way down. And it is explicitly based on race. It is racist policy. The funny thing is, they're going to claim race is prejudice plus power. Okay, well, in New York, white people make up about 30% of the population. So what power have they when they're a minority? Now, I guess technically they're a plurality, but not a majority. Okay, so what happens is government gets in, and it's their own fault, really. And he says, raise the taxes on the white neighborhoods. Here's how it works. Okay, I rented in Brooklyn. I lived there for a while. Buildings are run by companies. These companies have jobs. The job is maintaining the buildings and making it market competitive. You can by all means go live with a slumlord because it's cheaper and you can be noisy, but maybe you want standards. So you find an apartment you think is nice and there's a company behind it. I had an apartment in Brooklyn. There was an office building and they owned like 10 buildings where they had something. They probably had, 10 buildings, and this one had 6 units. So between 60 and 100 units being rented out. And they had property managers that would go. If you had a problem, you'd call them. They have to service it. So they are making a profit. They do make money, and they are wealthy. But it's a large business. They have a lot of employees, and they are maintaining the system. Now, what happens when you go to that company and say, we're going to increase your hard costs every year by 2%? They're going to say, okay. We're going to have to increase rent by at least 2%. This idea that they're going to go, well, gee, gosh darn it, I'll just reduce my profit margin. That's not going to happen. There's investors, there's loans, there's requirements. The business, this is what's mind-blowing to me about communists, okay? I was hanging out at this brewery the other day, and it's like a $5 to $10 million business. And I was just thinking about how crazy it is. I'm like, how does someone start a business like this? It's nuts, right? Like a car dealership. It's finance. It's all finance. Okay. So here's what happens. These people, they're them being so stupid. The owners of these buildings don't just own them outright for the most part. Some do, right? But many of them are. A company gets a loan and they say, it's funny because I don't need to explain this to you guys, but for the communists that may be watching, construction company sees a plot of land. They do an assessment and they say, we are going to see development in this area by X% if we are to build 2 units, each with 6 units, or 2 buildings, each with 6 units, we'll have 12 units. That's going to sell pretty quickly. It's going to cost us $400,000 to build. The land is going to be $400,000. We can sell this for $1.2 million. That means all of the people have their costs covered, and the additional costs go to the administration, the construction company. It's going to go interest fees. So the construction company goes to a bank and says, we need $800,000 to build this thing. We think we can sell it in X amount of time for $1.2 million because of the growth in the area. The bank says, okay, we'll give you this loan with X% interest. They got to pay that interest back. The profit that they make, certainly these people are wealthy, of course, but the profit they make is somebody at a high level managing a bunch of businesses, and it pays the salaries and it pays, like, the profit isn't just going to the construction workers, right? There's a firm that invests and buys the land, hires a construction company. They got to pay their accountants, and then the property owners get a very, very small percentage profit. But when you have 100 of these going at once, that's where your wealth comes in. Now, company that manages property says, we're going to buy this because we're seeing, we agree with your growth assessment. So we're going to pay X amount of dollars to buy the property. And then they do. And they say, we have to rent out each unit at X amount of dollars. They go to the bank. They say to the bank, we're going to buy this for $1.2 million. We're going to pay you. It's going to be, 3% interest, 4% interest. So we've got to sell it at this rate. Here are the taxes. Here are the hard costs. They calculate it all. When the property taxes go up, long story short, when the property taxes go up, the bank is going to say, your risk has increased, and that can cause problems. The business running these properties is just going to say, we are going to have to do an increase in rent. And they're going to go, you can't, because the mayor, the government, they're also blocking you from increasing rent. And they're going to say, nobody wants to do this job anymore. That's how you implode a housing market. Property values collapse, and you get bad neighborhoods, crime, poverty. But this man is as dumb as a box of rocks. So what could you expect? Now, he's largely targeting white people. We get it, but let's talk about the ethnic makeup of the neighborhood. I asked ChatGPT to break it down for us. It's kind of hard to see because it's a silly format. But we can see everything started to change from the 60s to the 80s. I mean, it's been changing. In the 1920s, it was about 80 to 90% white, 5 to 10 black, and then you had tiny populations of, non-whites. In 1940, it was 92% white in Manhattan, 80% white in Brooklyn. The city, 75 to 80% white in the 60s, 60% white in the 80s, 35 to 44% white in the 2000s, 33.3 white in 2010, and it's 30.9 as of right now, largely due to a massive growth of Hispanic Latino migrants and their children who have moved in and begun settling in New York. Now, let me just start by saying I literally don't care about the race of people. That's not me, right? I'm more of the, you get it. And most of you probably agree. If you're a good person, you believe in the American dream, like the color of your skin is not what matters. However, the problem is most of these people are going to have race preference, racial biases, and racist tendencies. This is a fact. So what happens? Zohran Mamdani has no problem publicly stating in his campaign that he will tax white people explicitly because they are a minority voting bloc. Now, of course, you can say, no, Tim. 30% is the single largest. So they're not the minority. They're still the majority. They're not the majority. They are the plurality. Okay? This means that they don't make up more than 50%, but they are the single largest, the plurality, but not the majority. The majority, you could argue, would be non-white. However, that there's still difference there, right? Like, an Asian guy from Vietnam is not the same as a black guy from New York, but they're not white. So when you get white people as a plurality but a minority, it is easy for you to campaign on, hey guys, don't like white people? Let's go after them. Now here's the issue. The only reason he's able to do this is because whites have an outgroup preference. White liberals. And New York is largely white liberal, meaning I'd estimate that with 80% of the white people there being liberal, we're looking at 25%-ish of the white population believing things where they hate white people. So when dude looks at this data, he says, this is easy. I've got a race I can scapegoat, white people. We can tax them. And even white people agree. Now, the business owners are going to freak out and probably leave, and the city's going to start to crumble and break down. But, well, that's what happens. But this is what happens when anybody becomes a minority. That's funny because the left talks about the problem of people being minorities, and the only argument that the problem minorities face, I should say, and the only argument they're actually making to anybody who pays attention is you better fear being the minority, which just exacerbates the issue of racism. Now you've got a growing political sect of white identitarians, which we've seen over the past 20 years. And the left can only call them white supremacists. Now, let me tell you, when you've got a dude who looks at the left's argument and says, they're right, minorities are mistreated, and then he says, we need or I should say, they want white racial affinity groups, or whatever they call them, that's a product of leftist critical race theory. The classical liberals, and I mean that in the true sense, not American liberal Democrat. I mean like the actual founding fathers' Enlightenment values weren't even as non-racist. They were a bit. And with the Civil War, times started to change. I think largely what we have is in the conservative faction with conservatarians, libertarians, conservatives, conservatarians being like kind of more libertarian but conservative. Nobody cares about your race. The only problem, most of the people who are non-white and coming to this country you've got a lot of immigrants, the Asians and the Latinos, who are not raised in Enlightenment values and classical liberalism, so they don't know or care. They're just going to vote for people they think are like them, as evidenced by Chicago. I talk about it quite a bit, but when I broke down the voter maps by neighborhood and the racial breakup by neighborhood, every neighborhood voted for the black guy. Every black neighborhood voted black guy. Every Latino neighborhood voted Latino guy. Every white neighborhood, except for Loyola, voted for the white guy. The Loyola leftist area voted for Brandon Johnson, the socialist black guy, who was not the first choice of the black neighborhood. But the black neighborhood's top 3 candidates weren't even the front runners. Now, I'm going to stress this again for you guys. In Chicago, in the black neighborhoods, the top 3 candidates were not the front runners. So there were front runners that you could see in the mayoral race who had the highest polling percentages, but when you looked at the black neighborhoods, it was just 3 black candidates. I think Lori Lightfoot was doing really, really well, Brandon Johnson, and one other guy. And then you look at this, and that's what I was confused by. I was like, wait. Candidates for mayor, how is this guy polling at 27%, but not a single, top candidate for the black neighborhoods had this guy in it? Because the white neighborhoods overwhelmingly supported him. That's the reality of what's happening with race and ethnicity in this country. Now, by all means, you can argue white supremacy is bad. You can say whatever you want. I certainly think white supremacy is bad. But I also recognize that any other racial supremacy and stuff is also just as bad. And what I mean by white supremacy is not what the left claims it is, like showing up to work on time. I'm saying outright, denying rights and voting access and work to people because of their race and things like this. With that in mind, welcome to your reality. White people without group preference and as a minority, if we're comparing this based on the leftist view of non-white and white, POC and non-POC, and white being default, whites are the minority. Then your politicians are going to levy policies against white people. And the judges in that place are going to say, but white people have privilege and power. Imagine going to court in New York and suing over this and trying to win. And they're going to be like, yeah, no, you're a white person. You have all the privilege and all the power. And you're like, we're a minority and they're taxing us based on race. And they'll go, nah, it's allowed. So I think maybe this is the lesson Michael Malice has been preaching for some time about being an anarchist. I mean, I've said this in the past, that I view myself as a philosophical anarchist, in that I've always recognized that it is but those with power that rule, right? You can claim to want everything, but if your worldview and your faction doesn't exert power to defend and assert it, you cease to exist. That's a reality. Now, I view myself as functionally moderate, somewhat liberal, in that there's a way I would like a system to be run, but that requires the power to run it. What we have now is just the harsh reality of the left will indoctrinate, will get power, and they will exert that power against people they don't like. And they don't like you. And they don't like white people especially, but they don't like you as an Americans. And when they get power, they will wield that against you. And that's where we're going as a nation. Now, there's a lot to break down in this guy being a communist beyond all of that stuff. With PolitiFact saying that he's not a communist. Oh, boy. Excuse me. What do we have here? This is, oh, yeah. Let me play this clip for you, and so we can break down exactly why he's a communist.
What the purpose is about this entire project, it's not simply to raise class consciousness, but to win socialism. And obviously raising class consciousness is a critical part of that. But making sure that we have candidates that both understand that and are willing to put that forward at every which moment that they have, at every which opportunity that they're given. We have to continue to elect more socialists, and we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism.
This is not controversial. The goal of socialism is communism. That's Lenin's worldview. And this guy's overt. I don't think we should have billionaires. What does that mean? What does that mean? Zohran Mamdani, blah, 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 we've heard it. He said in an interview that I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. You know the problem with inequality? Inequality will destabilize systems. It's a fact. Basically, we're talking about monarchy, tyranny, fascism, etc. The more power consolidated, the more people get angry about it because there needs to be a redress of grievances to release steam. And with the billionaires, you get a form of that. So I don't agree with their crackpot ideas, but I can recognize the instability that arises from dramatic inequality. The problem is the solutions they propose are developmentally disabled. We'll put it that way. Taxing the rich, taking more money. It's just not possible. Unless you want to create a global tax, people will then just start hoarding their wealth in some other way. They call them loopholes. It doesn't matter. There is no way by which a person of merit and power will be deprived of it unless you kill him. And then that's what you see with communists. That's what they do. So let me put it this way. The saying goes that if you take anybody who is a millionaire or billionaire, plop them on an island or like a brand new country, and you erase everybody's wealth. Or actually, what do they say? No. If you erased the wealth of literally every single person on earth, just to zero, no money, money's all gone. Property, everything's gone. The millionaires and the billionaires would quickly rise back up to where they were rapidly. For instance, some people who are millionaires aren't even all that good. It's just they got a personality that attracts and people want to give them money. There's tons of women that go online and just do naughty things and are given obscene amounts of money. That's just what they are and who they're. I've said this about Alex Jones, too. When they tried taking his money away, I'm like, dude, Alex Jones is his net worth, is his value. It is he. If he lost everything, people would want to watch him. He's entertaining. They like him. They like the news that he presents. They like the job that he does. What just happened? This computer is like trying to reformat itself in real time. It's going to do it again. Just watch. Look, there it goes. Yo, that's wild. I have no idea why the screen just did that. That's freaking me out. Maybe it's a ghost. Anyway, I digress. The point is, if you take everything away from Alex Jones and then have some 15-year-old kid film him on a cell phone, the video is going to get a ton of views. And people are going to want to watch him. These policies do not work. Now, we'll be joined in a moment by Michael Flynn. Lieutenant, I believe, I don't want to get his rank wrong. So, of course, the famed Michael Flynn. He'll be joining us to talk actually a bit about this. So smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. That'll be coming up at 4 p.m. at rumble.com/TimPool or over at youtube.com/Timcast. Don't miss it. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.